I'm at the Maui Mango Mala farm with my dear friend Smita Paul.
Hi, Jenny.
Thanks for having us up today.
Oh, I love it.
And we're going to tour all over Smita's farm, and we're going to learn about the implementation of her permaculture design. We met a couple years ago during COVID, and Smita took our permaculture design class, and she and her husband Andre did a design for their farm that was really different from their original ideas. And we're going to talk about the resiliency of the farm based on the permaculture principles. And it's just really exciting to see what's happened in such a short amount of time.
Part of the idea of the farm and part of our products that we sell on the farm is also the idea of reducing chemicals in your life. We don't use any sprays on the farm. We don't use any fertilizers. We make our own fertilizer.
So now you've put years and a lot of money into this farm, right, tapping into the agritourism potential of what Maui has to offer. And I know you were just launching, and then the fires swept through Lahaina town.
Yeah. Yeah, we looked at the model of agritourism, and because we live on Maui, everything is very expensive. And when we calculated, like, I had originally wanted 100, 200 mango trees, and even if I sold every single mango at a high price, it's still not gonna be enough. So we looked at agrotourism, and actually agrotourism is a wonderful model. And so that's why we designed the farm with that in mind. So we wanted a place where people could sit and hang out, watch their kids run, a place of discovery, self-discovery, because I feel like people learn in a way, they're touched more when they see something themselves and figure things out. We had games for kids to play. We developed this all because we wanted people to be inspired in a way to use the experience to go back to their own land, their own little yard, and make a decision about, like, let's grow something. Let's change the way that we're living. That was the whole idea. And we had one tour, and then the fire happened. It was something unimaginable. Like, still, it's hard to believe it happened. But we're really proud of this farm. We worked on the weekends and at night with some helpers, but we did it ourselves for the most part. And it's so resilient. That's the amazing thing is, and I'll talk more about it, but this farm had almost no damage in a hurricane that swept through Lahaina. And I could talk more about, like, the things that we put in place to have that resilience, and I'm really proud of the fact that it survived so well. When we came here, this was a defunct coffee farm, and it was a mess, and we didn't really buy it for the farm. We bought it because it worked for my mom and myself and my husband, and we were like, what are we going to do with this land? And we looked at some of the other farms, Launiupoko, and they have these beautiful lawns in between the fruit trees. And I was like, that's what we're going to do. We're going to do beautiful lawn and have beautiful fruit trees in between, and we can mow through them. That was our original idea.
And then
we took your workshop.
That's right.
The workshop during COVID, where she taught people how to build little food islands in their backyard. And I was like, wow. Companion planting, it's like boom, like, yep, light bulb. And then I started researching that, and then I took her class. And then in between your workshop and the class, I was already researching high density mango planting, what that was all about. You know, I never liked permaculture because I was like, those farms look messy.
Right.
I don't want a messy farm. But now I understand that that isn't just a weed. That's something that's working underground for another plant.
Right.
And it's amazing to me. I'm in awe of it. And
Yay.
I'm really happy I took the class, and it changed the direction of what we did with our land.
Well, let's head out into the garden and have a look.
Okay.
So I'm noticing that you have several little mini biodigesters inside your beds. So let's just quickly explain what they are.
So I'm really into lazy farming, and like the idea of like having to fertilize things is not appealing, like keeping a schedule and stuff. And so what these are is like they're tiny little composters, and we just put our kitchen waste in there, and within like I think 2 feet it's going to fertilize and bring the worms in. It's going to fertilize around 2 feet around it. And so each one of these petals has one of these little, they're actually irrigation control things, which I got at the irrigation store. They're like $20, and they have the holes in them so the earthworms can come in and digest the kitchen scraps.
And you can scale these up. In Seattle, they used to sell these really big ones because they were trying to keep the raccoons and the rats at bay, and they wanted people were really into composting, but they weren't doing it very well. So we got these big green cones, and that it goes underground as well. So this is an excellent lazy person's composting strategy for excellent fertility in your garden. So in this property, the prevailing winds come, barreling across this stretch right here. And Smita said that her neighbors clocked at over 100-mile-an-hour winds. Hot, dry winds that just fried everything. This is 4 weeks later. If you look just beyond the petal garden here, you'll see a series of designed windbreaks that are protecting their fruit trees and also protecting this garden. So a few things died in the 100-mile-an-hour hot winds, but look, this design is really resilient. Right here in this open space, everything is flourishing again. So we're standing at the edge of Smita's farm, and she was just sharing with me how the giant ficus trees and things that people encouraged her to cut down saved her farm during this storm. That wind buffering, that, the protection of her house, the protection of her trees. It's a huge investment to get a farm like this up and running. So on this edge, right behind us, we have, what's this plant on this first windbreak plant?
So this is another windbreak we put in, and this, believe it or not, these trees are only 1 year old. This is A'ali, and it's a native. It's actually fire resistant. It has natural fire retardants, and it's fast growing, and honestly, I didn't really pay much attention to it. I put it in, sometimes I watered it, sometimes I didn't. It just dug in, and it belongs on this land, and it's an amazing windbreak for our more delicate plants over here. It also not only creates a windbreak, but it's also a shade break for, we're trying to grow Brazilian cherries.
Oh, my faves, Grumichama.
Oh, I don't even know. I've never tried one, but I heard they're great. So we put a row in here, and then that still wasn't enough shade, so then we put a row of papaya. And what we did with the papaya, we wanted the shade was actually one of the valuable parts of the papaya. So we buried the stem so they would be short. They're not a dwarf variety. We just buried the stem about a foot, and they grew. And I also like fruit that's like easy to reach. I'm not into climbing ladders, so that works for me.
Right. Okay, so did you grow the seedlings or did you buy the seedlings?
Seedlings we grew.
So you grew the seedlings, and when they got to be a certain size,
Right.
half of it went underground.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And then look how easy that is to harvest. I mean, that's just great.
Yeah, I know. We have ladders, but the whole idea of this farm is to not use a ladder, because we want all the fruit to be easy, accessible, so that one farmer can harvest and not have to get a machine in here, not climb on a ladder, take risks. Those are the ideas that we have that go throughout the farm.
Okay. So here we have a native windbreak, a delicious fruiting cherry bush, the Grumichama, the Brazilian cherry, a dwarfed papaya that's just done by a methodology of planting, and then behind that is going to start the V trellis system. We're going to move into that really quickly. What's really interesting about this design, as it not being a monocrop, it's biodiverse. What does biodiversity do for you? It's habitat for beneficial insects. It's a windbreak. It provides shade. It provides beauty. It has a mulch. It has a root in the ground that repels weeds. Like, there's all kinds of things that the biodiverse system does for you. Well, let's walk into the V trellis, because that's just fascinating to me.
Okay.
One of the things I love about the V trellis is that it's all about big, fat, marketable, high-priced produce at the end of the day. And what you do is you take these V trellises, and these have cement buried underground. So this is just super durable. The V trellis opens up, and you trellis the branches of the fruit tree along the wires. So the structure of the V trellis is supporting the branches, and they don't have to put so much energy into building big, strong branches for really big fruits. You often prune the middle of the fruit tree so more photosynthesis goes into the middle of the fruit tree, and then the branches on the wire trellis can hold the heavy fruit as it grows. While this is growing, what Smita and Andre have done is they've combined some permaculture things inside. So they have the bananas and look at the shredded leaves from the hot wind that came through, but the bananas got racks of fruit on them that look really good. There's a pigeon pea, which is a nitrogen fixing shrub underneath. And then of course you're going to get yields from the bananas. Once the bananas produce, you can cut these trunks down for mulch around your fruit trees. Here's something a lot of people don't know. The feeder roots of the fruit tree will grow into the banana underground and drink water from the banana. So it's a passive water harvesting system. So I'm standing next to these young mango trees which are thriving, and we're talking a little bit about the trade-offs between the bananas in this Vitrella system and what it means to design a resilient orchard, a climate resilient orchard. It's so important to understand the irrigation needs of this system versus what Smita was just describing to me, how farms down the street run their sprinklers almost 24 hours a day.
I think everything is super local, right? You have to look at what grows in Lahaina, what grows in this kind of sun and the water that we have, and think about it. And the great thing about mangoes, papayas, and figs and bananas is they're super resilient. They don't need that much water. The coffee farm that was here before, I mean, coffee that was grown in this area sometimes needs 24-hour drip. We keep our drip on for 30 minutes 3 times a week.
Wow.
That's almost nothing. It still costs us a lot of money because they double the water rates, but you know, compared to another kind of farm, and part of it is not just that we have mangoes, but that we have mangoes and bananas next to each other. The banana is basically like a nutrient drip for the mango.
Right.
It gives it water. It's like a water tower full of nutrients for potassium. And also the mango, it doesn't mind drought. It likes drought. We cut the mango water off actually for 3 months. So that's another like great crop for Lahaina. It's very hot here.
So the bananas are a little bit more maintenance. You have to cut them back, and you can see these trunks have been cut back and they just grow again. So they're super robust in this system, and they have a yield, and they're feeding the mangoes, and they're wind resistant, and they're just part of this design that's climate resilient. And any farmer that's not looking at climate resilient design at this juncture is really missing a huge opportunity to protect their investment, to grow diverse crops, and to minimize their water usage.
You know, another thing I wanted to say about this is that, you know, the bananas, you know, when I was doing the research on the V-trellis, they were talking about like you have to be careful that the sun, you know, that the trellises get 8 hours of sun, and most V-trellises do not have bananas inside them. And I've been criticized actually for putting the bananas there, but the reason I did that is because yes, we have more than 8 hours. We have so much sun in the summertime in Lahaina, and very intense sun. And actually most mangoes, young mangoes, don't mind partial shade. You have to protect them from this heat in Lahaina. So that's one of the reasons that the bananas are there, is it creates shade for these young trunks. And again, everything is super local. It may not apply to someone who's living in California or somewhere else, or Florida. It's all different. But here in Lahaina, we get very intense sun.
Well, I think it's really important for farmers and orchardists to experiment with climate resilient design at this juncture. Put 10% of your farm in an experimentation, anticipating what climate reality, what climate instability is going to do in your bioregion.
Right. So our land is shaped like a heart, and the edge is where, right, it meets up where the edge of those mountains are. And so this point gets the most wind. Everything is directed to this point. It's the apex. It gets roaring down here. And so we had a mango tree here and it got blown over. In fact, that mango tree fell over at one windstorm, and so we planted this cluster of giant papaya, and these we didn't dwarf. We let them get as big as possible, and so that's why all these 3 papayas are planted together. And you can see this papaya lost its top from the storm.
Oh, yep.
But
and it still has a ton of fruit on it. Look at that. Okay, that's amazing. And this one is also fun. Look at these giant papayas we can harvest from right here. Are these ones ready to pick?
Yeah, you can pick one.
Okay, so this will ripen up in a couple of days. We got a boat-sized papaya coming off the windiest point of the land. 5-color award-winning mango. Beautiful mango. Okay, so we have basically we have an alley we're walking through of Smita's food forest. This is so fun for tourists and their kids to run through and see the fruit and all the different things growing on each side. And when this is in full production, there's just more fruit than you can eat. It's just fruit dripping down. So it's super fun, and it's also a really productive system for a permaculture farm.
And do you notice the temperature?
Yes, it's all of a sudden
so much
breezy
cooler.
and cool. Yeah. So we're always looking for the three, I call them the 3 Ps. What's possible? What can you do in this climate? What's profitable? You have to be able to make a living on your farm. And what's pono? What's the right thing to do? How can you malama pono? How do you take care of the land? How do you take care of the water? How do you take care of the plants? How do you have a diverse ecosystem on your farm? It's also an educational farm. And so the combination of all these things, these are the examples we need. These are the mosaic tile pieces. These are the fractals of examples of success. Smita, I just want to thank you so much for being open to changing your design and for really like leaning into all the things that permaculture has to offer. I know you've done a ton of your own research, and I know you've made friends through your permaculture network.
Sure.
And while at this moment the farm might feel shaggy and it might feel like it's like you're in a, you know, it's a hard moment to get through for all of us, and yet it must be so gratifying to see all the leaves back on the trees and the fruit producing again.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, I think everyone is a little scared about what the future holds as far as climate is concerned. And I get scared too, but I come down here and I walk among the trees and I feel like, okay, we are doing something that could help. And I welcome anybody who wants to learn more about it, and I welcome anybody who wants to try. We were experimenting. We experimented and we learned from the experiments. We watched the trees, we watched the wind, and that's really how we built the farm. We were aware of what, in a way, we learned from Jenny, that Maui's going to get drier and the wind events are going to get stronger and the hurricanes may come closer, like all these things. So we built the farm to survive all that. And this is our first test, which was a tough one.
And you passed.
Well, the farm definitely passed, yeah. I'm really proud of that. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Growers Magazine at the Maui Mango Mala farm right here in Lahaina, and we'll see you next time.